I think two things primarily that I'd like to speak to is one, how government banning Twitter has in a sense done a disservice not only to itself but also Nigerians. NCDC was one government agency that made excellent use of Twitter. During the pandemic and post the lockdown, daily updates, weekly updates, DG Ikeazu really did a really good job in using the platform to not only educate Nigerians but also to engage, to respond to issues, to debunk fake news. And in shutting down Twitter, we shut down that channel of communication. And you can see the difference because post the Delta variant, Nigerians are not as engaged as they were with what is going on with COVID. They are not as the information is not readily at your fingertips. You can say there are other social media platforms, but it also speaks to the importance of Twitter and why, in a sense, it's not only, and I think I'm sure Gbenga has alluded to that, the same post that the president put on Twitter was also put on Facebook. So it's not the platform in itself, it's that there are fundamental issues with the structure of governance in Nigeria that the people who make Twitter home, of all the social media platforms, I'm by far the most active on Twitter. Facebook doesn't really work well for me. I'm not particularly a visual. Instagram is tuned more to visual things, not particularly my style. But Twitter, in the amount of information that one gets, how one can engage on it, works for certain types of communication. And that really is what the government is afraid of, in my opinion. And you can also, let me just land on that. So for NCDC did an excellent job, and unfortunately with the Twitter ban, they haven't been able to do that. And then fast forward a bit to NSAS. Twitter played an incredible role in mobilizing young people across Nigeria, literally across the world, to find a place to express voice. One of Jack Dorsey's crimes is the fact that he supported NSAS. And government has, and this is not a conjecture, it's not what I think, it's what government itself has said. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. And so his crime in supporting young people to have voice and use their voice, his crime in advocating an additional channel of, of raising money through Bitcoin, are things that the federal government of Nigeria still holds against him. And that is in itself a problem. So if you add the fact that government uses Twitter because it sees it as valuable, Twitter was used during the NSAS to mobilize, it's very easy to understand why the Nigerian government is afraid of a platform like Twitter. Not of social media generally, because they've tried to ban it in different ways. But Twitter in particular, because Twitter has shown its ability to help mobilize young Nigerians and give them voice. And as we go on ahead to the 2023 elections, as long as the federal government of Nigeria chooses not to deal with the fundamental issues that Nigerians have, we have issues with unemployment. We have issues with security, which Gbenga has alluded to, that hasn't been solved. We have issues with Nigerians feeling that they are not Nigerians, feeling that a part of the country is favored, feeling like the country is not listening to them. As long as those issues are not dealt with, the Nigerians feel that this is their country and they have a stake in it, then for as long as there's a place where Nigerians can exercise their voice, be it Twitter, radio, Facebook, Instagram, TV, wherever and anywhere, they will find a way to express themselves. And for government to constantly hide from dealing with those issues and blame a platform for allowing people to express their opinion is just laziness and shows that they're not really ready to solve the problem that is on the table. And the last thing I wanted to say is that it is important that we also are clear that if the federal government of Nigeria wanted to ban Twitter, they could have done it legally. Gbenga alluded to that as well. The Chief Justice of Nigeria is currently sanctioning judges up and down the place for giving orders they shouldn't be given. You can buy an order. The government could have gone to court and gotten an order in 24 hours. Lagos State just passed the VAT bill, literally, in I don't even know how many days that thing took start to finish. So if the government wanted to get a legal order to ban Twitter, they could have done it. But as I sit here, and I don't know you guys, gentlemen of the press, I have not seen a document, neither a court order, neither a formal letter. So they needed either a court order or a law to actually tell the telcos that by law, by a court order, or because we passed a bill in the National Assembly, you must stop Twitter. What seems to have happened is that people got phone calls to say, stop access to Twitter. You can't run a country like that. We saw that again during NSAS. The Central Bank of Nigeria forced banks to close bank accounts or prevent transactions happening on bank accounts. Again, not going to court. It was after the fact that they then went to court. You cannot run a democracy like this. And those are the issues. And these speak to fundamental issues within Nigeria's democratic structure that as citizens we must continue to address. We are in a democracy. And with a democracy comes certain rules of engagement. This is not a military era. This is not a monarchy. And we must be clear about that and hold the people that we've elected to lead us. We must be able to hold them accountable. Under former President Jonathan, he said clearly that there were members of Boko Haram in his administration. As far as I'm aware, again, gentlemen of the press might stand to correct me, there's no one that was prosecuted on that as being a member of Boko Haram. The same thing with non-profits. There's been, especially in recent times, non-profits are supporting terror. They're being used to launder money. You know who these organizations are. Why don't you just go after those specific organizations rather than painting all of us with a brush? Again, social media. People are using that to destabilize the country. There have been several cases. PIN and EIE took an aide of the president, Loretta Onoche. We have a court case against her because the very way the government uses the Cybercrime Act to go after people who say negative things about the government and cyberbullying, I guess is it. We actually took her to court on those same parameters, on that same act. That if you want to use that act to harass Nigerians, that act can also be used against your actions. The case is still in court. So you can easily pick out those who are doing things and make examples of them that you are violating the law, rather than, as Mr. Adewale said, shut down the whole platform because a few people are doing. And let's also be clear. Are there people on Twitter and social media platforms doing bad things? Most definitely. Are there criminals in Nigeria? Most definitely. So it's not to say that there aren't bad things happening, but you can isolate the bad people and charge them to court as the rule of law allows, without having to take a whole platform down that then disturbs the livelihood of Nigerians. After the 2011 elections, a lot of government officials came on social media because they were excited, as Benga alluded to. They had seen the role social media played in their coming to power, and people were excited about it. But they all came to social media and quickly retreated because they were not used to being challenged. Benga made the point that for Mr. Mohammed, that social media is able to correct him point per point in real time. And that's the advantage that social media has over radio, TV, or newspaper. If I read an article on Premium Times, until I write a letter to the editor or fill in their contact us section to counter that article, but it's between myself and Premium Times. If Premium Times chooses not to edit, chooses not to acknowledge, there's nothing I can do. And the same for Premium Times, Punch, This Day, any of the newspapers. If I take TV, for example, you are Rave TV. If you are doing your program and I don't agree with you, I'm shouting in my living room. You can't hear me. Radio, unless it's a live calling program where I have the opportunity to call and my call is picked up, do I have the opportunity to express myself? But social media provides an opportunity to speak in real time. You talk, I talk right back at you. And so in 2011, it was a huge shock to politicians because they would say something, and Twitter again, 100 and whatever characters it was at that time. Unfortunately, we also don't have the privilege of, excuse me, sir, your excellency, your honorable, too many characters, too many characters are going. So you go straight to the point. So it comes across as rude. It comes across as, what did they call us, children of anger. But it was an opportunity for citizens who found an opportunity to say what was on their heart. Let's not forget, as a people, we are not taught what a democracy means. What a lot of us grew up understanding is military rule. And in military rule, you keep yourself to yourself. Nobody wanted to die. Nobody wanted to end up in jail. So for a lot of us as Nigerians, the power dynamic of a democracy, we don't understand it. And it's not just us as citizens, also politicians. I remember the first time I called my senator. I don't know what was on the floor of the National Assembly at the time. This was a few years ago. And when I called him, and I wanted to find out how he voted on a particular matter, his question to me, who are you? My name is Yemi. Are you a journalist? No. Are you a member of the APC? No. He couldn't place, he wanted to place who I was. And I was like, no. I live in Ikeja, I'm in your constituency. I just wanted to know how you voted. He went off, started shouting, who am I? Who do I think I am? How can I call him? How dare you? I said, okay, calm down. Let's have a conversation because you represent me. And for him, I believe it was the first time anybody was actually asking him that from a position of someone he represents. And for me, it was really an interesting conversation. From that day, when I call him, my sister, how are you, is how he starts to call. Because the dynamic had shifted. So let's not also be too hard on ourselves, but we also must be committed to teaching ourselves. So to your question, yes, Mr. President, it's part of his job. I'm sorry, it's part of the perks of his job. I will abuse you. No, it doesn't mean I need to be rude. I can make fun of you. I mean, there's so many. Look at Donald Trump. I'm sure you saw, come on. What did they not say about Donald Trump? From his hair in ponytails.
The present president.
Exactly.
They call him Sleeping Joe. No.
Aha, thank you. So then, or Alaji Putin, or no, not Alaji Putin, or Putin, or how they make fun of him in Russia. So there are things that people will do because it's freedom of expression. So are there lines that are crossed? Yes, in the interest of national security. And that's what one of the legal advices we got for this case is that yes, the government can make a case that in the interest of national security, we need to take this action. Or you go to the National Assembly and you present your case so that you can get an enabling law. Or you go to a court and say, look, in the interest of Nigeria's integrity, these are the challenges we're having. We need to do A, B, C, and D. But there's a requirement that you can't just wake up and say, you know what, I'm upset with Twitter today, I ban it. No, democracy doesn't work that way. So yes, I agree with you. There are limits, but the law also provides for that. That's why I gave the example of the Cybercrime Act. There are parts of the Cybercrime Act that PEN and EIA Nigeria have taken right now at the Supreme Court, because we say it violates our human rights, and we're challenging it in court. But the law still remains on the books of Nigeria. So while it's on the books and there are aspects of it we can use, we've taken an essay to the president to court on that same law. And that's why we're here.